Hi, Karen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
So you brought in a couple of books.
Yes, my father recently passed away, and he had quite a collection of books of all different subjects, and it's very hard to figure out what to do with them because we don't want somebody just to come in and like buy the whole set, because we know that there may be some valuable ones. I think he was particularly proud of these two. He had mentioned to a family friend that he had a set of books that was used during the Civil War, and that's what these are from 1856, I believe, is the copyright date. And of course, we didn't know which books in this huge collection of hundreds and hundreds of books, and as I was kind of sorting through things, I came across what I believe probably it was the set of books. So, so it's a 2-volume set of infantry tactics from 1856, and one interesting thing, it has a foreword by Jefferson Davis in 1861, and a little map in front of volume 1. So I was just wondering, you know, what the value might be, or where the market might be for something like this.
Right. Well, I'll tell you how to get there in a minute, how to find the exact market on it. What other interests did he have in his library?
Well, he was a member of the Montana Weapons Collector Society,
really?
the historic, the Military History Museum here, Lewis and Clark. He gave presentations on Lewis and Clark.
What was his name?
Robert Schipf, S-C-H-I-P-F, yes. And then he was also interested in planes. He belonged to the museum out at the airport too. So he had very many, he was a geologist, so he had very many interests and a lot of books.
Those are all good categories for collectors. Always, you know, I do a lot of appraisals of libraries, and as far as collecting, if you don't want an old novel unless it's a first edition by Dickens or Mark Twain or whatever. What you want botanical, you want military history, you want art, or anything more scientific, geology. Those are the collectible books, because people who collect books generally are very focused in their hobbies. They just don't want a bunch of titles up there. These books, these are interesting that they have that foreword by a Confederate general. But these were produced in the 1850s, 1856. Rifle and Light Infantry Tactics, and it's a 2-volume set. If you look here, it shows you how to advance with your bayonet. All the great arts of war that you needed going into the Civil War, and I imagine that these were around and were probably the what they handed out at the various military academies, or officers, in particular, on learning how to drill and how to become warriors. But as far as pricing, there's a really great service on the internet now, and it's a trade secret. You go to www.bookfinder.com, and every rare bookseller's inventory is on there. And so you'll actually see these titles. You type in either the title or the author, but you want to make sure to put the exact publication date. And what'll come up, it'll come up either highest to lowest in price. The true value is the lowest that it lists on that sheet, because that's what you can buy it for today. So it's my sense these are going to come in around $500. But check it out on there. That's what I'd do if I had 5 minutes on my
Bookfinders.com.
Bookfinder.com.
Bookfinder.
And A.A. Bookman or A.B. Bookman and Alibris, all those services feed into that. And then if you want another set, you hit click and it goes to the shopping basket, and away you go.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hi, Lewis.
Hi.
So you're outside here, we have other events going on. You're with the radio club here locally. What's your organization?
It's the Hellgate Amateur Radio Club.
Really? Oh, great. Yeah. My brother Ken used to be involved with that, I think.
A lot of fun.
Tell me what you brought in.
This is a 1926 Freshman masterpiece. It's a radio that was operated just on batteries. It had 3 batteries, 45, 90, and 135 volt batteries. The interesting thing, and I don't take it apart very often because the screws get too loose, but all the wiring underneath the Bakelite are square copper wires with no insulation.
Really? Wow.
And it is really, inside it is a beautiful piece of artwork almost.
And what year exactly is it again?
1926.
1926. A freshman masterpiece. Do you know anything about the company? Have you studied up on
I've never found anything on the company. A lot of radios of this vintage were sold as kits. And if this was a kit, whoever did it did a beautiful job.
Tell me about the bands. I mean, what the various dials pertain to.
This is all AM.
Okay.
There's no shortwave in this or anything.
So you have the amp.
This is the antenna tuner, and then the different stages, you tune it in until you get the signal.
Oh, okay.
It's unlike your modern ones that have dials and you can see the frequency. This you have to tune it and find the station you want.
Are you aware of any radio auctions out there? Have you gotten any catalogs or newsletters from various
Oh, I
auctions?
have. There's one magazine that goes out, but
What I find is the market on them is real varied. I mean, sure, there's eBay, and believe it or not, there's guys who have bookmarked pages on eBay looking probably for this. You know, they've typed in freshman masterpiece, seeing if they can turn one up. That's one of the marketplaces, but I find that something this specific and this electronic and high tech for the time period will also have a real sophisticated collectors group. It'll be newsletters and auctions that pertain just to radios. It's super early, and it's got more technology than most radios of the era, don't you think?
it is. They're also, these don't have the value of some of the newer ones because of the voltages in here, and not too many technicians like to work on them.
Well, what I'll do is I'll give you an idea of value just from my background and having bought and sold a lot of radios over the years. It's funny, when I was a young antique dealer, I used to run an ad, and I would say, wanted one old wooden radio, and I was doing that. I didn't want any radios. I just wanted to get into the basement where the big heavy radio was, So that got me into thousands of estates over the years. But now I'm starting to buy them and resell them, and I find a nice early model like this might go, what, $600-700? Is that what you think?
I doubt it.
Really? I think you might be surprised. I mean, you're probably like my brother. You've probably had a lot of these for so long that you haven't seen. The antique markets have gone like nuts in the last 5 years, and a lot of times they're quantifying yearly, especially when it's the good old stuff. The good old stuff the older collectors have, and that's where it comes from. So I'll stick by it, and we'll check it out, and then you get a hold of me, and I'll prove up on it or apologize.
Sounds great.
Okay, sounds good. So, hi.
Hi.
How are you? Where did you get these old pieces here?
Aren't they old?
Yeah.
They are reputed to be from the wedding set of my grandfather's grandfather. My grandfather would have been born in the 1860s.
Okay, so these would be late 18th century is what you think?
No, two generations before him.
Okay, so
More like
closer
the
to
1700s.
yeah. So it'd be like 1720s, 1740s.
I would guess.
I think so by what they are.
What are they?
Well, they're English china, made by actually various makers, and every one of these makers, if you have somebody who is handy with the internet, it'll tell all about their factories, when they began. I looked at this one, for instance. It's Colbridge, Colbridg. They're ironstone china is what they are, and ironstone refers to the content and their hardness. They're slip glazed, and then they're highlighted with these copper leaf patterns here. So, I always like to think who used these way back then. I mean, genealogists, wouldn't it be great to just have their names of the original owners on them? But
yes.
Yeah. This pattern, I can't remember what the pattern is called. Do you recall what that is?
No, I never knew.
Yeah, I have a book on English patterns and marks, which I'll give you to look at when you walk away here.
Okay.
When you have a little more time to research, if you would like, I'll lend it to you. Okay.
Fine,
but each one of these is by a different maker, and
really?
yeah, if you look, this one's Colbridge. This one here is by Edward Walley, Walley. This one here is by. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a Coleridge here as well. Wallace Coleridge. China. So anyway, they're same but not all same makers. I see these go at auction in the English auction houses. If you're on the English Antique Roadshow, they'd immediately clue you in as to what these go for. But what I observe is $125 for this piece, $75 for this piece, $100 for this piece, and $300 for this piece. So,
Goodness.
yeah, it's all about how old they are, the value is, because there are a few of them have made it through the years. So, okay.
Well,
All right,
very
thank you
interesting.
very much.
Thank
very nice
you.
of you to bring them in. Hey, Dale. I've been talking to you, but it's good to meet you. So you're from an old Butte family, and you were mentioning that your aunts had a mansion in Uptown Butte, and they were jewelry store owners, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me more about it.
Well, they both passed away in the last few years.
Did they have families? Were they married, or were they
No.
never married? And they lived in the one big house?
There was a duplex, and the family, their folks passed away in '45. So they took to one side and made it a storage for the jewelry store.
Oh, okay.
They lived on the other side, and they had 3 bedrooms on each side up above. So they used the 6 bedrooms, and then they shut off the other side for storage.
So you were saying that they would go to Europe to buy their jewelry store contents?
Yes.
Lead crystal and gemstones over
They're
there
supposed
too?
to have, the best cut crystal in the Northwest.
You know, Butte was a huge cosmopolitan city then. I mean, they were in operation, what, in the 20s, 30s?
Yes.
Yeah.
20s and 30s.
Yeah, and in 1907 or 1909, I think Butte had 120,000 people. But, you know, you see more fashion, more high-end, kind of decorative things come out of Butte just because.
Well, what I understood, the big boys brought their wives or mistresses over here from like Chicago, and they had to supply them with something nice, otherwise they wouldn't stay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So they fixed up things nice.
So you brought these prints in today.
Yeah.
And they bought these when they're on their buying trips for lead crystal.
Yes.
Did they get these in France, or did they get them in Italy?
The letter that was on the pictures was they bought them around the Hilton in Istanbul.
Really? Ah, interesting.
And they bought a bunch of stuff, and you looked at the box. I don't know what all come from there, but there's quite a few things.
Yeah, well, these are Parisian, and these are actually fashion plates. Like these ones are, the mode of Paris, meaning that when there was a new line came out from a dress designer, they would print these and mail these out or sell them as magazines. Here we had Godey's Ladies, but these are fashion plates from the 1850s and 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's where they got the term, you look like a fashion plate, is from these.
Oh.
These are hand tinted or aqua tinted with watercolor on steel engraving. And so a lady would actually receive this book and be able to order this dress and this gown from the company that put these out. So and there's quite a collector's following for them. Of the 3 here, this one is the most beautiful, I think, and the best hand tinting and nicely worked. These ones here, the smaller ones, this one would go for 150. This one would go for about, I'd say 170. And this one you'd see framed and matted nicely at about 300. When you go to these companies, though, like on their journey, if you go to Paris on the left bank, there are all these print sellers' stalls mounted to the pediment over the river. And same if you go into London, into the just off Piccadilly, you'll find all these bookshops where over the years they've cut up these books and sold them as fine art. And that's what happened here with your aunts, is they were traveling, they went to one of these sellers and bought these because they liked the images. So that's kind of what I know about them.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So, hi.
Hi,
What
I've got some spoons that are unusual for me, and I got them, oh golly, when I was about 20 years old.
Did you?
Up at Gold Butte. There was an old hotel up there, and I bought
Butte,
them
Montana?
there. Yeah.
Where is Gold Butte, Montana in
I
relation
don't know if it's still, it's up north,
like Great Falls? Or-
north of Great Falls,
Really?
yeah, up in
Okay.
that area. And it might not even be there anymore. It was
Yeah.
just kind of a gold rush town at the time, and
Right.
there was an old hotel that had it. And they have designs on the back and the front, both. I was just curious about them.
Well, they're a sterling silver is what they're made of, and they're made by 2 different makers. This one has 3 hallmarks on it. There's a heart, a P, and an anchor. And so I have a book that would tell me who that maker was. But it's a souvenir spoon with a scalloped bowl, and then it's got ears of corn on the handle, There was a real fad in the Victorian era through the 1920s. Ladies would collect these, and I've seen collections as big as 500, 600, 1,000 of them.
Ooh, I've got probably 10.
Well, still,
But I don't, you know,
you
not
can see
many.
why they were collected, because there's every topic on earth were
Yeah.
marketed, you know, and then they're also sterling silver, so they were in jewelry stores. That's, you know, kind of neat. This one has the Montana emblem with a miner with the state flowers on it. On the back, you turn over the handle, and it's got the state capitol and the state university, and it was made by Crown W. Rampant Lion, whoever, you know, that manufacturer would be for that hallmark. But I don't know, these collections they're very fun, and I've seen a really great souvenir spoon. Let's say it's got a bucking bronco on the handle for the Western collectors. It'll go for $175 if it's from Miles City. You'll see a lot of mining theme ones. You'll see, you know, just any kind of cultural theme from
Yeah,
the Victorian
yeah.
era. And, you know, you have to figure silver is, what, 12, 13 bucks an ounce, maybe
Yeah.
more. So that's the start price, but then the collectors step in and they start running them up from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 bucks for
Okay.
a very nice one. So,
And I have this, what's it one? It's just another souvenir, but
yeah, I think that, oh, this is great. It's a World's Fair Chicago Mickey Mouse knife. So,
yeah.
did you get that in your life?
It was my stepmother's.
Really? Okay.
I got it in her stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know the story behind.
I was going to say it's before your time. Well, it's, you know, it's got to be fairly rare, and I would have to, you know, you're sure that it was acquired by her at that time period. It's period to 1933.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure it would have
Okay.
been, yeah.
You know, a lot of these were reproduced.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And what threw me is the Mickey looks a little more full-figured. He was really skinny in the early days.
Yeah, I
you know,
wondered about that,
in the
too.
20s. Yeah, when he was Steamboat Willie, he didn't look like the one that
No.
we see at Disney
No, I
right
know.
now. But I agree, it probably is original, and I would need to look it up, but I say it's going to be pretty good because it's A, a World's Fair, and B, a Mickey Mouse. And I think it'll come in at a couple $100s, but you know, I'd have to see what they're selling for
Okay.
on the internet, which is probably where you'll see where they have sold. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
They're sweet little things. So. What's your dog's name again?
Zoe.
Zoe. Hi, baby.
This is Zoe.
Oh man, she's cute. She's thirsty when we're done. Give her more
Yeah,
of this.
I'm a dog whisperer and a horse whisperer. We also raise Andalusian horses.
Do you really? Are you in the valley here? Or?
We were, but they moved back to North Dakota, just east of Sidney,
I'm sorry.
Montana. Yeah, well, we're getting out of the business since
Yeah. Well, great.
You know.
Well, what did you bring me? Okay, so you have a rodeo belt buckle with a Morgan silver dollar in it, and a hat. Tell me about the belt buckle. Who won that rodeo?
Actually, I have no idea because I bought that at an auction and it didn't even have a value on it. It just went with a box of stuff.
Okay. Okay. First of all, if it were a rodeo belt buckle, we'd want to see the name of who won it, or maybe the prize that it was
Oh,
won
I can-
for.
I can-
But I'm all about the dollar in it. That's where the
Yeah, I
value
know,
is
I
in
know.
it. You know. I think it's a nice thing, and I'm glad that they're together. And what's nice also is it's prong set, meaning that they didn't harm the dollar when they put it in there. But it's called a Morgan dollar after the designer of the Lady Liberty head on there. And if you look in her crown up here, her tiara says Liberty in it. These wear most on the facial features on the dollar. This one isn't worn much. It's all about the date though, and the
I
mint
know
mark.
that.
If you flip it over, which you can't do because it's prong set, there'll be a mint mark, and it'll be O, S, CC, or P. And the best of those would be CC for Carson City. A really minty Carson City gets up into the thousands. But these, you know, you can price them actually pretty easily on the internet. You'll see what they're
Yeah.
selling for today. And, you know, Morgan dollars, they go all the way from, you know, they call them slicks, where you buy a bag of 1,000 where all the features have worn
But
off.
also the rodeo buckles are worth, in
Okay.
themselves, have their own collectors.
I say if the rodeo buckle were a little bit more inscribed to an actual rodeo guy and there was more history to it, that it would be better. So as I say, the value I think is in the silver dollar, and so you would need to look.
I beg to differ with you.
Okay, well, that's fair enough.
I come from an old ranch family just east of Sydney when that country was settled. And
Well, the problem with the buckle is not to harp on it, because I
know.
agree, rodeo buckles are very nice, but it's
I betcha.
it's a later one. It's circa 1990s, and then the dollar was put in it. But still, I'd like to see somebody's name on it, and then it'd be a real, like if it had Turk Greeno or Sally.
my relatives were some of those people.
Yeah. Okay. Good. But anyway, so it's a nice thing. The value is going to be in the dollar. So,
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming in.
Nice to be here.
So you're on the board of directors at the Fort Missoula
Friends,
Historic.
right.
Yeah, great organization.
It is.
Yeah, thank you. Well, tell me about it, will you? What you brought in here?
Well, this belonged to my aunt, who was married to my mother's brother. She was Jane Power, and she was the granddaughter of T.C. Power, who was one of Montana's first 2 senators, who owned a lot of downtown Helena, who originally had a
Steamboats.
mercantile in Fort Benton.
Diamond R.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when she died, it went to my mother, and then when my mother died, it went to me. So I don't know whether it was my aunt purchased it or her father or grandfather.
Well, everybody in Montana knows about T.C. Power. I mean, he found Fort Benton, or no?
Right. He had a mercantile there, so he did all the steamships that came up. They unloaded everything at the mercantile in Fort Benton.
Which means that every bit of goods, if you had a bottle of ale or if you had a dress, it came up T.C. Power's riverboat from St. Louis to Fort Benton, Montana.
That's right.
And that began well, there were riverboats in the 1840s,
right.
But he was at his heyday in the 1860s. Is that right?
He was operating well before Montana became a state.
Right. And his ships outfitted the gold camp of Bannock,
Correct.
the gold camp of Virginia City, and the gold camp of Helena, which was
That's
Last
right.
Chance Gulch.
Right.
Okay. I know that in the 1980s or 90s, there was a big auction of Power Tobin memorabilia.
When my aunt and uncle's mansion was sold, then my cousins auctioned off most of their.
I could shoot myself. I was doing an appraisal out of state, and my friends were buying stacks, like playing cards this big, of T.C. Power riverboat tickets.
Right.
And they were buying them for like $200 for a lot of 100. And now I see them. I appraised one the other day that just sold for $1,200.
Yeah.
So,
We used to play with all that stuff when we were kids.
Really? Dig it out. Well, what's beautiful about this is it's a mansion style. I mean, it's very elegant, high form, piece of lead etched crystal with German silverwork on it. It probably was for one of the T.C. Power family mansions. It was probably brought out later on. I would say it came out on a train after the heyday of the riverboats. It's got fantastic scenes all the way around it. I mean, it's just almost eye-dazzling. You could spend about a half hour viewing the scenes to see it all.
Right.
The top has this wonderful silver repoussé work on it. There's chasing on it. Who made it? It's a piece of art crystal which has been etched and then fitted with German silver. And if you look here, there are hallmarks on the bottom, and silversmiths will stamp their name into their silver as they work on it. And the hallmarks here are a crown, G, and almost a Knights Templar cross, a cross. But then it says Germany down here. So I do have books that I can dig into that would tell me exactly who made it. He made it in the late Victorian era, the silver that is. I maintain that there would have been a design house who ordered the crystal and then had him make the fittings, and then they were assembled and then sold at that point. This is heavy lead crystal. It's acid etched. It's hand blown, which means that this was originally a chunk of molten glass, which the blower just blew it into this form naturally and then tooled it to make it look like that. Then they snapped the pipe off the top up here and ground the glass. So the glass blowing of the Victorian era was fascinating. Like window glasses, what they do is they would have a cast iron table, and they would get chilled water, and it'd be running over this table, and then this guy would sit and huff and puff and blow this big bubble that would then fall on the table, and they'd cut it into squares. And so glass blowing was a huge deal in the Victorian era. Condition on it is great, except the crystal has a crack. Yeah,
It doesn't leak, which tells you how thick it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But it,
don't get it near the sunlight, because it'll keep spreading on you. But gosh, it's fantastic. I wish I knew more about the hallmark of the maker, but again, I just have to look on what it would go for in a high-end auction. It's fine enough. You know, most auction houses are snooty if they're a big auction house. Like some of the bigger ones who deal in this sort of thing are Sotheby's Christie's, but also James Julia in the East, Freeman's, and several other Skinners. They deal in this mansion kind of decorative arts. As does Bonham's in San Francisco. So you would see a piece like this with a pre-auction estimate of $2,000 to $2,500 in mint condition, and on a good day at the auction, it might bring $3,800, $4,500, just because it's got so much to it, and then the history enhances it. I know of several collectors here in Montana who would buy it because it was T.C. Powers. So there you go. You're like Montana royalty, man. You are blue blood. So. All right.
well, I'm not selling it, so
Oh,
thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
Very much.